Hello everybody from Plant Reviews UK. Today is the 22nd of May and the plant I'm featuring in this video is the beautiful Telopea speciosissima, the Waratah, or as more specifically should be called the New South Wales Waratah, even if actually New South Wales is not the only species of Waratah. The Waratah belongs to the genus Telopea, and all the members of this genus are called Waratahs. There are 5 species currently classified, but this one, Telopea speciosissima, is the one most commonly cultivated as ornamental plant in gardens. I won't say all around the world, because actually this plant is not very widely cultivated as ornamental plant. However, it is definitely one of the most beautiful and sought after. The Telopea speciosissima is a member of the family Proteaceae in the order Proteales. This family of plant, Proteaceae, is native to the southern hemisphere, so is distributed indeed in the southern part of Africa, South America, as well in some areas of Central America, Australia, New Zealand, and India. Was probably distributed also in Antarctica before obviously the continent froze, and this is a typical Gondwana distribution. The Gondwana was the land mass in the southern hemisphere in well, prehistoric times, and really million years ago, and the plants originating in the southern hemisphere, they kept this distribution even when the other continents drifted away from each other and some of them joined other continents. The family Proteaceae is one of the order Proteales, and the name of the family and of the order comes from the Greek god called Proteus, who was able to change his form, and basically the name of Proteaceae and of the order Proteales is actually a very appropriate, because the plants and the flowers in these orders, or in this order and families, are very, very diverse from each other. The order Proteales comprises currently, is still debated, but currently 4 families that are really different from each other, and they have only seeds that lack endosperm as common feature, if I remember correctly. The flowers and the leaves of this plant and their growing habits are really different. In addition to the family Proteaceae, the other families included in the order Proteales are the family Platanaceae, that includes the plane trees and sycamore, also the Nelumbanaceae, that include the lotus plant, the ones that produce the beautiful lotus flower, the iconic lotus flower, as well as another family of plant that, if I remember correctly, is called Sabioginaceae, that is really unknown for gardening purposes. Maybe I think the plants of the genus Melosma or Meliosma are sometimes kept for gardening purposes. However, definitely the plants that are most famous for the family of plants most famous for gardening, especially for the flowers, other than of course the beautiful lotus flower that belong to the family Lumbanaceae. The Lumbanaceae are indeed the species that occur in the family Proteaceae. The family Proteaceae includes different genera of plants, including Protea, coming from South Africa. There is the genus that gives the name to the whole family and order, as well as Leucadendron, Leucospermum. These plants are from South Africa, and Bothrium from South America, as well as other really iconic plants are, of course, the Australian Protease, of which actually, I think two species have very important global commercial importance, because they produce the macadamia nuts, and other genera that are very well known for gardening are the Australian genera of the Banksia, Hakea, and Grevillea, and of course Telopea, that is this one. Telopea speciosissima in ancient Greek means beautiful, most beautiful, speciosissima, and seen from afar, Telopea. So literally this plant would be the most beautiful seen from afar, and actually you can really realize why. The striking crimson red flower heads are really can't go unnoticed looking at the plant. Also, this plant is the common name of the plant. Waratah means in the Eora language. The Eora were an Aboriginal tribe of the area near Sydney, New South Wales, means red flowering tree. And there is actually a legend about why the Waratah is red. Waratah flowers actually come in different colors. There are different varieties of Waratahs, but of course the most common in the wild is this crimson red ones. However, in the wild there are also present white forms. According to this legend, all the Waratahs were white in former times. However, in the forest, one of the species commonly found in the Australian forest is a bird called Wonga pigeon. Like all pigeons, this lives in pair. Sorry, I'm trying to focus the video on the flower. So the Wonga pigeons usually live in pair, and basically this pair of Wonga pigeon was raising their family, and they went out foraging. They have two rules really. One, never lose sight of each other, and the other rule was never fly too high on the forest canopy. One day when they were eating, happened that the female lost sight of her partners, and she panicked and she decided to fly high in the forest to look for him, forgetting really what was the rule. So, hoping to find him, flew that high that actually was seen by a hawk, by a raptor, and this one grabbed her with its claws. She managed to free herself, but unfortunately she was badly wounded, and she went to rest a bit on a Waratah tree. When she was resting, the blood coming out from the wounds fell on the flower that became red. She tried desperately to find her mate, flying from tree to tree, and doing this started staining all the white flowers of the Waratahs red, all the flowers that she encountered. Then unfortunately she died, but by that time she traveled so much the forest that almost all the Waratahs have become red. And this is the Australian legend explaining why so few Waratahs are white. However, in cultivation, the red, this beautiful crimson red, is not the only color found in Waratah. There's not only white variety in addition to the crimson red, but also some pink varieties, as well as I recently seen a yellow variety too. Also there are some hybrids of Telopea speciosissima with other species like Telopea oreades that comes from colder region of Australia, and this was done to increase the hardiness of this plant to cold climates. I will of course come back later about the growing conditions I cultivate this plant. This plant has many members of the family Protease, comes from a lignotuber. That is this woody area. I'm not too sure if you can see it. I'm trying to focus it because with my mobile is a bit difficult. Okay, I think you see it. So this big woody area is called lignotuber, and the stems of the plant comes out in the species vertically from the lignotuber. Sometimes the lignotuber is completely hidden by the soil. Some other times is a little bit exposed, like in in my case. Of course, I am putting it in a pot, so I can really see the YouTuber. Maybe I should have potted a little bit deeper. However, so far so good. I've been cultivating this plant from already 4 or 5 years now, even if this is the first year it blooms. I bought this plant at Plant Base, a nursery that I really recommend. It has an amazing variety of plants, and I will put the website on the description of the video. And is, as far as I know, is the only nursery selling the Waratah Telopea speciosissima in the United Kingdom. And when I bought this plant, the plant was about probably this tall, was about 15-20 centimeters tall, and was bred by seed by the owner of the nursery. So I didn't plant the seed myself, was the owner of the nursery to do it, and I bought this seedling. The seedling was in this pot called air pots, and is a bit different. Gives basically allows the roots to not attach really to the pot like normal pots, plastic pots or terracotta pots like this, but as far as I know it's better because allows the roots having a better aeration, and as far as I know for Protease is very important. The Proteaceae family is characterized by having a mass of roots and hairs, yes, that these hairs also belong to the root system that comes out radially from the plant. And basically these roots secrete carbonic acid that make available phosphorus that is usually not available in the soil when where Proteaceae grows, and this allows the plant to basically use compounds that are not easily available to other plants. This is the reason why many of these members live in very poor soils. The problem is that this kind of roots are so good in uptaking phosphorus that if you actually add fertilizer containing phosphorus in the plants, most of the plants will die due to kind of phosphorus poisoning. This is what I found in most sources. Other sources, however, state that in some cases phosphorus actually can trigger the blooming of the plant if the fertilization is done at proper times. However, in doubts, I decided not to never fertilize the plant, and this is the reason because I have it in a pot indeed. I need to water this first, always before putting the fertilizer in the watering can when I fertilize their plant, because I don't want to risk this plant. This is a very rare plant, as I said. There's only one nursery I found in the UK selling Telopea speciosissima, and of course you can plant the seeds if you are able to find the seeds on the market, but the seeds in Telopea have a very limited viability. They need to be sown fresh in order for the plants to germinate. So really it's always better, if you are not sure that the seed is fresh, to buy the plant. When I went to Australia 10 years ago, I had some seeds of Telopea, and actually I planted them, but none of them sprouted. Instead, my Banksias sprouted without any problems. Unfortunately, I lost the Banksias anyway, because evidently the soil was not good for the germination of the seeds. So I don't basically have any of the plants I planted from seeds from Australia now, but I'm really glad that this plant I bought from Plant Base survived. Telopea speciosissima grows from this lignotuber, these stems that usually are vertical, and on the stems, as you can see, they develop leaves, strongly toothed, green to actually dark green, and the leaves are they grow basically in a spiral way across the stem, as you can see, and in time, in my opinion, the plant, as you can see, tend to become quite leggy. This is a condition that I found in several photos of Telopea speciosissima. Not in all, some of them are very bushy, even at the bottom part of the plant, but some others, like mine, basically lose the leaves near the base, and then they keep the leaves just at the top. I was worried the plant was actually having problems, but then I realized it actually was blooming for the first year, so definitely it was not a problem for the plant. This plant reaches about 3-4 meters tall in the wild, and it can be propagated not only by seed but also by cutting. However, the problem with Telopea speciosissima is that the seeds, not only the seeds are of very limited viability. The problem also is that the plant is generally self-incompatible, so you need two plants with two different genetics, so not related, not cuttings of the same plant, in order to get viable seeds usually. I found an article actually that says instead that in some cases you can still get seeds from self-pollination, but the number of seeds produced in the seed pods is very low, and the survival is not very high anyway. So I will see if I manage to get some seeds from this plant. I will be more than happy, and check myself if I can actually grow this beautiful plant from seed as well. The Telopea speciosissima on the stems, on these very woody stems growing from the lignotuber, develops these terminal flowers, these inflorescences. The inflorescence is basically surrounded by these crimson red bracts, obviously crimson red because the flower in particular, this specimen, is red, and the flower head is kind of spherical. It can variate from dome-shaped to sometimes conical or globular. In my case, it's pretty spherical. And the flowers of the flower head can be many, up to 250. They open sequentially. The different whorls, sorry for the pronunciation, of flowers open sequentially from the outer part, basically continuing to the inner part. Indeed, you can see that in the central part of the flowers are very closed, while these ones are open. The single flower is tubular, and the stigma and the anthers actually lie next to each other at the tip of the flower. I hope that you are able to find the... I'm not sure if you are able to see the detail. Unfortunately, it's not very easy to focus, maybe at a distance. Yeah, so you can see that the flowers are really tubular. The shape of the flower is really is very exotic. Definitely, if you have a jungle garden, Telopea speciosissima is probably the best, one of the best plants that you can grow in the jungle garden. It really looks tropical. About the cultivation of this plant, it's a plant that I cultivate as recommended by the owner of Plant Base, in a mix of about 60% pine bark, and in my case this is really orchid bark, mixed with some perlite 10%, and about 30% of acidic soil. This is, in my case, the pine bark I got was orchid bark, was mixed with a bit of ceramis that kind of holds the moisture, and actually found that probably this is also pretty good for the Waratah, because comes from an area in Australia that is very localized, is called the Sydney Basin, and is characterized by quite a high rainfall, unlikely many other parts of Australia that are extremely dry. Also, another factor to keep in mind when growing the Waratah is that this plant usually lives in the understory. In the wild lives in apple shade, and I found also another video very interesting about growing Telopea speciosissima, saying that the plants growing in California in full sun were usually scorched leaves by the sun. So, and even in the UK, here my garden is like northwest facing, northeast facing, so it receives sun from spring to autumn during the morning, only during the morning, and in winter actually doesn't receive direct sun at all. And the plant, actually the Waratah, grew very well, and as you can see, bloomed beautifully. So I believe that the conditions mostly enjoyed by this plant are partial shade with sun in the morning, even in the United Kingdom, and definitely I would not recommend a southern exposure. The fertilization, as I said, I know that on the market there are some fertilizers specific for Protease, but I didn't want to take the risk, and as you can see, it is the plant is blooming and is growing, so at the moment really I don't see the reason to fertilize it. This is my only plant and I don't want obviously to risk to lose it, and if maybe in the future I get some cuttings to get more of these plants, I might try using a fertilizer, but definitely not at the moment. About the temperature, this is a plant that I found sometimes reported as hardy in USDA 10, from USDA 10 onwards, sometimes USDA 9. Well, I can guarantee to you that I live in USDA 8, and it has been out in this garden in winter, exposed to any kind of weather, including snow, when we had -7 degrees Celsius for a week, and the plant was perfectly fine with that. Under the snow, we had icy condition and frost. As I said, not very long. Usually the snow and sub-zero temperatures in Kent, where I live in the center of Kent, in southeast England. Icy conditions, sub-zero temperature never last more than a week at least. I've been living in the UK for about 9 years now, and I've never experienced sub-zero temperature for more than a week in the area where I live, and the Telopea speciosissima was perfectly fine with that. So this is my experience. Definitely USDA 8 is the USDA zone that most of the UK, of the United Kingdom is, and I believe you can grow Telopea outdoors all year round in many areas of the United Kingdom that are either USDA 8 or 9. Remember anyway, I wouldn't recommend, especially in summer, full sun the whole day, and so just partial shade. Also I found, and this is probably true, this plant, as you can see, can be very leggy and actually quite mobile, so it's better to protect it from strong winds. I have it here close to my house, protected by the fence, and being the back of the garden, it's quite protected by strong winds, as you can see, and the location really suits my Telopea speciosissima. Unfortunately for my love for fragrance and scent, this plant is completely scentless. Really can't smell anything, and this is actually quite understandable, because usually red flowers, the red is a color that most insects can't see. They're completely blind to red. They can see ultraviolet, but can't see red at all. So plants that are red are usually pollinated by birds, not by insects, and Waratah is indeed not an exception, because is pollinated mostly by honey eaters in Australia. The birds don't have usually very developed sense of smell, and especially pollinating birds also, as far as I know, have a very little sense of smell. So the plant really didn't have the need to evolve a fragrance to attract its pollinators, because basically they are not able to smell it. So instead decided to develop, also, well, decided is not really a word, but say evolved to attract the birds this beautiful red color. As I said, this variety is crimson red, but there are other varieties of different color, pink, white, or yellow. However, the red one is the most common, and is the most common in the wild as well. The Waratah is definitely one of the most iconic of the Australian plant. Is the flora emblem of New South Wales, and it is grown commercially there in quite big numbers, but I found also in other areas like California as well. They have quite a good market for Waratahs, as well as other members of the Protea family. In England, as I said, where I live, it's not a very common garden plant, but I really think should be more common. It is a very beautiful plant. It is quite exotic. It is, I found, if you are able to know, if you know what potting mix to use, it's quite easy to grow. I didn't plant this in the ground because my soil is mostly clay. Also, I found these plants are quite sensitive to Phytophthora and some other diseases, and I didn't really want to risk to plant the plant in the soil, in order to avoid, first of all, fertilization with fertilizer containing phosphorus, for my error, because obviously sometimes I fertilize the plants of the garden with fertilizers, as well as problem with root rot or dieback due to Phytophthora. Phytophthora can be quite a problem in many countries, and actually I had a beautiful grevillea in the garden that unfortunately died. I'm not too sure why, because survived perfectly fine in the winter as well. Weirdly, it died at the end of summer, and possibly I found this was due to Phytophthora, because many plants infected to Phytophthora, this after root rot and dieback, and most of them die actually in summer due to the water stress if they are not able to get enough water. So I don't think I will try to grow this plant planted in soil in the garden. However, if you are looking for a specimen plant to grow in a container, I can definitely recommend the beautiful Telopea speciosissima, the most beautiful seen from afar. As usual, I hope that you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, it would be great if you can please give a thumbs up. And if you like this video and the other videos on my channel, it would be great if you can please subscribe. It is completely free for you, but in this way, of course, you help me to support my channel and to make even more videos. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.